At my baby shower, in front of my family, my husband's family, our friends, everyone, my mother-in-law, Cynthia, stood up, looked straight at me, and said, "We're getting a paternity test, just to be safe." She said it like she was asking if I wanted more cake, like it was no big deal to question whether the baby inside me belonged to her son. Then my husband, Evan, who I've loved, supported, and trusted for 5 years, nodded and added, "Can't hurt." He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just said it like we were talking about ordering an Uber. I looked around. Half the room froze. A few people awkwardly laughed, thinking it was a joke. My sister Tasha's face turned bright red. My mom, Janet, dropped the plate she was holding. But me? I smiled. I took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and said, "Already did one." A pause. "But not for him. It's for your dad." You could feel the air get sucked out of the room. Every single person went silent. Then everything exploded, people shouting, crying. My father-in-law, Walter, nearly knocked over a table trying to leave. And Evan? He just stood there, staring at me like I'd turned into a stranger. But I wasn't the one keeping secrets. And this is the part of the story they didn't see coming. My name is Leona Hart, and by the time I was 7 months pregnant, I had already decided that my baby's last name might be the only thing I kept for my husband's side of the family. My home was decorated with pink and gold balloons, soft baby blankets, and cupcakes shaped like tiny bottles. I had spent weeks planning my baby shower with Tasha, and it was the first time in months I felt excited. I didn't feel sick, bloated, or stressed. I felt hopeful. I stood in front of the mirror in a rose-colored maxi dress, one hand under my belly, and smiled. That smile would barely survive the afternoon. Tasha peeked her head in and whistled. "Damn, sis, you don't even look swollen today." I laughed and threw a pillow at her. "Thanks, that's the nicest thing anyone said to me in weeks." She walked over, adjusted my necklace, and looked at me. "You ready to see Cynthia?" My stomach dropped. Cynthia Hart, my mother-in-law, had a way of draining the joy out of a room. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. She never directly insulted me. She didn't have to. She'd use a smile to mask every dig, every judgment. The first time we met, she looked me up and down and asked if my parents were in education or entertainment, as if I couldn't have gotten into law school without a shortcut. And yet, here I was, still trying to win over a woman who never wanted to see me win at all. "I'm not ready," I admitted, "but it's Micah's day." That was our son's name, Micah. A name I had chosen, one Evan didn't even fight me on. At that moment, I thought it meant he was finally listening. I thought we had become a team. The guests started arriving, friends from college, coworkers, cousins, old neighbors. My mom was the first to show up, arms full of food, already fussing over centerpieces, and trying to feed everyone. She kissed my cheek and whispered, "You look like a goddess." I hugged her tight. "I don't feel like one, but thanks." When Evan's parents arrived, the energy shifted. Walter, my father-in-law, hugged me a little too long, he always did. He'd kiss my cheek and linger, like he wanted to say more. He'd send me messages late at night, asking how I was sleeping, how the baby was kicking, if Evan was treating me well. I used to think he was just kind. Then I started paying attention. Cynthia strutted in behind him, carrying a box and wearing a tight-lipped smile. We brought our own cake. "You know how Evan likes chocolate." She looked me up and down. "You've grown." "I'm pregnant, Cynthia. That's kind of how it works." She smiled wider. "Yes, well, not all weight gain is baby-related." I forced a laugh, excused myself, and went into the kitchen. Tasha followed. "I swear to God, if she breathes wrong, I'm flipping the buffet table," she said. "Please don't," I replied. "I like the food too much." Despite Cynthia's attitude, the party went smoothly at first. There were games, gifts, and laughter. For a little while, I forgot who was in the room. My best friend made a toast. My aunt cried during the slideshow. Evan rubbed my back while I opened onesies, rattles, and books I'd loved as a child. He looked proud. I looked loved. But underneath it all, something in me stayed alert, like a wire pulled too tight. Cynthia had barely spoken to me all day, but she hovered near Evan, whispering in his ear every chance she got. When I caught his eye, he'd smile and brush it off, but I could tell he was hiding something. It wasn't guilt exactly, it was hesitation. He looked like a man trying to avoid stepping on a landmine. I just didn't know which one. At one point, I noticed Walter sitting by himself, watching me, not Evan me. His eyes stayed on my face, my hands, my belly. When I met his gaze, he looked away and adjusted his watch, like he hadn't been staring. It was subtle, but my skin crawled. I moved closer to the group. The last game was Guess the Baby Stats, and just before we started, I saw Cynthia whisper something in Evan's ear again. This time he nodded. He didn't look happy about it, but he nodded. My mom noticed it too. She leaned over and said, "Do you know what that's about?"
No idea, Elite.
In truth, I had a bad feeling. Cynthia never whispered anything good. I expected a passive-aggressive comment, maybe a dig at my parenting before it had even started. I didn't expect what actually came. But I should have, because when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And Cynthia had shown me from the beginning that she didn't see me as a wife, a mother, or even a person worth trusting. She saw me as a threat. And that day, she decided to say it out loud. We had just finished the baby trivia game when Cynthia cleared her throat. She stood at the end of the living room, a glass of sparkling cider in one hand, and tapped her fork against it, like she was about to give a speech at a wedding. I froze. She wasn't smiling anymore, not the fake kind, not any kind. She looked like a woman on a mission. "I just want to say," she began, "thank you to everyone who came today. It's been enlightening." People chuckled awkwardly. Evan's eyes darted to me, then back to her. "But before we all get too carried away," she said, "Evan and I have talked, and we've decided we're going to get a paternity test, just to be safe." The room fell silent. The music kept playing, but quieter now, like even the speaker system was embarrassed. Someone near the back laughed nervously. My cousin coughed. My mom blinked, like she hadn't heard right. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. It felt like all the air had been sucked from my lungs. Cynthia looked directly at me, waiting. Evan finally stepped forward and put a hand on my shoulder. His voice was soft, but it hit like a slap. "It can't hurt, babe. Just to shut everyone up, right?" I looked at him, searching his face for any sign of irony, any indication that this wasn't real. But he meant it. He actually meant it. I stood up slowly, not saying a word. Tasha jumped in before I could. "Are you serious?" she snapped. "You're really doing this here? At her baby shower?" Cynthia's smile returned, tight and controlled. "We just want to be sure, that's all." With how fast things moved after the wedding, and with Leona's background, she didn't finish that sentence. She didn't need to. My mom stood too, face flushed. "What background are you referring to?" Cynthia shrugged. "We just want to protect our son. Our family. You can understand that, can't you? The gall of it. To stand in my house, eat my food, watch me unwrap baby gifts, and then accuse me of lying about the father of my child, in front of everyone. And to say it like she was asking about the weather." Evan didn't say anything else. He just stared at the floor, like a boy caught between two parents, like he had no say in it, like he wasn't the man who had helped me pick out this home, this nursery, this life. Walter finally spoke. "Cynthia, maybe this isn't the time." She turned to him. "If not now, when? When she's already on the birth certificate. When it's too late?" I looked at him too. He met my eyes for a second, then looked away. There it was. Every single person who could have stood up for me, who should have just stayed quiet. And in that moment, the humiliation didn't sting as much as the realization. This wasn't about the baby. This wasn't about doubt. It was about control. This was Cynthia's final test, her way of forcing me to kneel or fight. She wanted me to beg for their trust. But I wasn't going to do either. What she didn't know was that I had already seen this coming. A month earlier, after one too many late-night texts from Walter, I started paying attention. One night, he messaged me at 1:14 a.m., asking how often Evan had been home. He claimed he was worried about me being alone. I showed the message to Tasha. She said what I had been afraid to admit. that something felt off. So I did something no one expected. I ordered a discreet at-home DNA testing kit. I swabbed my cheek, and when Evan fell asleep, I took a swab from him too. Then I waited. The results came back a week before the baby shower, and the first thing I did was check the baby's match against Evan's. It was a match, no doubt. I knew it would be, but part of me needed to see it, to know for sure. But then I did something else. I still had a DNA sample from a family ancestry kit Walter had left at our house over Christmas. He had bragged about tracking his Scottish roots. I sent that in too, just to satisfy a question that had been gnawing at the edges of my mind. When I got the results, I sealed them in an envelope and kept it in my purse. I didn't know what I would do with them, not yet. But I had them. I was ready. So now, as Cynthia stood there accusing me, Evan nodding quietly beside her, I realized this was the moment. I could stay quiet, let the shame settle in the room like smoke, or I could clear the air with fire. I looked around at the people who thought they knew me, at the man I married, at the woman who never believed in me. Then I smiled. Actually, I said, I already did a paternity test. Cynthia blinked. You what? I stepped forward and took the envelope out of my purse. But not for Evan. I tested the baby against Walter. The room cracked open. The silence didn't last long, but for a few seconds, it was thick enough to choke on. And then everything unraveled. When the words left my mouth, I tested the baby against Walter. It was as if I had ripped the roof off the house. The air snapped. Conversation stopped. Someone in the back whispered, "What?" Like they were afraid they'd misheard me. But they hadn't. I repeated it, clearly this time. I already did a paternity test. But not for Evan. It's for Walter. Walter's face went white. His glass clinked against the table as he slowly set it down. Cynthia's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had no words. Evan looked from me to his father, his lips parted in confusion. My mom gripped the edge of the table, like she was bracing for a storm. Tasha just folded her arms and stepped behind me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I stood there in the center of the room with the envelope in my hand and fire in my chest. I had imagined this moment a dozen times, but I hadn't expected it to feel so calm. Walter finally found his voice. "Leona, what are you saying?" I turned to face him directly. "I'm saying I got tired of being treated like a liar, like some outsider looking to trap Evan or scam this family. I knew someone would bring up the paternity test eventually, and I wanted to be ready. So I took matters into my own hands." "You tested me?" Walter asked, his voice shaking. "Without my permission? You gave it when you left that DNA kit at my house last December. You didn't think it mattered then." Cynthia slammed her glass down. "This is disgusting. You're out of your mind." I met her eyes. "I'm tired of defending myself, of being picked apart and second-guessed by you. I've been your son's wife for almost 3 years. I've never cheated on him, lied to him, or given you a reason to doubt me. But you've never needed a reason, have you? You just wanted to find one." Evan finally spoke. "Wait, so the test came back negative? What exactly are you saying, Leona?" I took a breath and looked at him. "I'm saying that Walter is not the father of this child. There's a 0% biological match. And I never believed he was, but the fact that I even felt the need to do that test should tell you something about the pressure your family has put on me." He stared at me like I was speaking another language. "You thought my dad might be the father? Why would you even think that?" I didn't. But I noticed things, messages, comments, the way he looked at me. "You ignored it when I brought it up. You always brushed it off, told me not to cause drama." So I decided to be the adult in the room and get answers instead of waiting for more questions. Walter was red now. He stood and pointed at me. "This is character assassination. I never touched you, I never said you did." I interrupted. "But your behavior was inappropriate. You crossed lines. And if I hadn't protected myself, you'd all still be sitting here questioning whether this child is even Evan's. So I proved it. I proved all of it." Cynthia stepped forward. "You've humiliated this family." "No," I said. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. The truth." The envelope was still in my hand. I placed it on the coffee table in front of Evan and stepped back. Read it or don't. It's yours. I'm done explaining myself. The room had gone from festive to silent in under a minute. People started looking at each other, unsure if they should stay or leave. Tasha walked up beside me and whispered, "You want me to start showing people out?" I nodded. "Start with Walter." Walter didn't move. He looked at Evan, then at Cynthia, then back at me. "You don't belong in this family." I tilted my head. "That's funny. I was just thinking the same thing about you." Tasha moved toward him, and Walter finally turned and walked out without another word. Cynthia followed, fuming. Evan stood in place, staring at the test results he hadn't opened yet. I didn't need him to. I knew what they said. My mom took my hand. "You didn't have to go through all that, baby." I looked at her. Yes, I did. No one else was going to stand up for me. When the room emptied out, Evan finally spoke again. "You should have told me. You didn't have to go behind my back." I turned to him. "And you didn't have to agree with your mother in front of our entire family. You didn't have to say, 'can't hurt,' like I hadn't given you every piece of myself. You want to talk about betrayal? Start there." He didn't answer, and I didn't push. That wasn't my job anymore. That day, I didn't just defend myself. I reclaimed something I had been slowly losing since I joined the Hart family. My voice, my boundaries, my peace. I had waited too long for someone else to speak up for me. In the end, I was the only one who did. The guests had mostly gone. Tasha was gathering plates in the kitchen while my mom comforted a shaken family friend who had witnessed the entire scene. The house still smelled like vanilla cupcakes and fried chicken, but the sweetness of the day had long since soured. Evan sat on the couch, staring at the envelope I had left in front of him. He hadn't opened it. He hadn't said another word since I confronted his parents. I stood a few feet away, waiting but not pleading. I had said everything I needed to say. Finally, he spoke. "I just don't understand why you had to drag my dad into this. If you knew the baby was mine, why bring him into it?" His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't even defensive. It was small, confused, like a child realizing the grown-ups have been lying to him for a while. "Because I saw where this was heading," I said. "Your mother has been planting seeds since the moment she found out I was pregnant. I knew a paternity accusation was coming. I just didn't know when. You could have told me. And you could have defended me when she said it, but you didn't." That stung. He looked down again, then finally reached for the envelope and opened it. He read the 2 sheets of paper, flipping between them. The silence stretched until he finally said, "So Walter really isn't a match." "Nope. No biological relation to the baby. Not even a sliver." He nodded slowly. "And you really never thought he was the father?" I stared at him. "Are you asking me that as my husband or as Cynthia's son?" He flinched. "I just want to understand." I stepped closer. "Understand this. Your father sent me messages at 1 o'clock in the morning. He asked if you were home. He made comments about how my pregnancy timing was interesting. He told me, more than once, that if I ever needed anything, he'd be there no matter what Evan decided to do. That's not how a father-in-law talks to his pregnant daughter-in-law. That's how a man talks when he thinks he has leverage. So, I did the test, not because I thought he was the father, but because I wanted to shut that door forever." Evan swallowed hard and nodded again. "Okay, I believe you." I didn't respond, because it wasn't enough to be believed. Not now, not after what had happened in front of everyone I loved. Down the hall, I heard my mom saying goodbye to guests. Tasha came in and gave me a look. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. Her eyes said everything. You did what you had to do. Cynthia never came back into the house. She waited outside for Walter, who had peeled out of the driveway 30 minutes earlier. I saw her from the window, pacing by the car, talking on the phone, furious. She didn't look hurt. She looked exposed. And for her, that was far worse. My mom walked back into the room and rubbed my back. You did good today. I leaned into her for a second. I didn't want to ruin the shower. You didn't. You saved your child's future from being surrounded by people who only see suspicion. She was right. That moment hadn't ruined anything. It had revealed everything. The next day, Cynthia sent Evan a long email accusing me of manipulating the situation, of turning him against his family, and of humiliating Walter unfairly. She never mentioned the test results. She never apologized. Evan didn't show me the full message, but I saw enough to know that her version of the truth didn't include accountability. Walter stayed quiet. He didn't reach out. He didn't deny the messages. He just disappeared. Evan told me later that he had gone to stay at a friend's place. Maybe that was true. Maybe it didn't matter. A few days later, Evan came home from work early. He brought flowers. He sat me down and said he had called a therapist for himself, for us. I need to be better, he said. Not because I think I messed up once, but because I've let things slide for years. You shouldn't have had to fight alone. I listened. I appreciated it. But I told him it would take time. Trust doesn't come back just because someone apologizes. It comes back when they change. He asked me if I still wanted our baby to have his last name. I said yes, but not because of the name, because I still believed he could grow into the kind of father who deserved it. Micah was born 3 weeks early, strong, healthy, loud. He had Evan's eyes and my stubborn mouth. He screamed like he had something to say, like he had a story to tell. And when Cynthia asked to visit at the hospital, I said, no.
Not yet.
Maybe not ever.
She had wanted a test.
I gave her the truth. But now that it was out, she didn't know what to do with it. The truth didn't just clear my name, it changed everything. It broke things that needed to break and gave me a chance to start something stronger in their place. The hospital room was quiet when Micah fell asleep in my arms. His breathing was soft and steady, his tiny hands curled against my chest. Evan sat nearby, watching us. For the first time in months, there was peace between us. Not because everything was fixed, but because everything had been laid bare. There was no more pretending. Micah's birth wasn't a reset, it was a mirror. He brought with him a truth we couldn't ignore. We either had to rise to it or fail in front of it. In the weeks that followed, the silence from Cynthia and Walter grew louder than any words they could have spoken. Cynthia never apologized. She sent a gift, a silver baby rattle with Micah's initials engraved on it, but no card, no message. I wrapped it in tissue paper and placed it in a drawer, not out of pettiness, but because I wanted Micah to decide one day what to do with that part of his story. It wasn't mine to destroy or rewrite. It was his to understand on his own terms. Walter stayed gone. Evan told me that his father denied nothing. He didn't explain the messages, the timing, or the tension he had created. He didn't admit guilt, but he didn't claim innocence either. Evan said that told him everything he needed to know. We moved forward carefully. Evan started setting boundaries with his mother for the first time in his life. He canceled their weekly dinners, stopped answering late-night calls, told her clearly that until she respected me, she wouldn't have access to Micah. It wasn't easy for him. He'd always been the peacekeeper, the one who swallowed his discomfort to avoid confrontation. But he finally understood that silence in the face of cruelty isn't neutral, it's permission. And for the first time, he chose me. Tasha came over often. She helped me set up the nursery, held Micah while I napped, and reminded me constantly that I had done the right thing. My mother became even more protective. She started calling me every morning just to check in, and I welcomed it. After what I had gone through with Evan's family, I clung tighter to the ones who showed me love without conditions. I didn't forgive Cynthia. Not right away, maybe not ever. But I did stop letting her live in my head. I stopped worrying about what she thought of me, or what lie she might try to spin next. She had shown her hand. The whole family had seen it. And once the truth is out, it's hard to twist it back into something polite. People talked, of course. Cousins called to ask questions. Friends who were at the baby shower sent long texts. Some were supportive, some were uncomfortable, but none of them mattered more than the quiet truth I carried now. I had defended myself without cruelty. I had protected my son before he was even born. I had done what too many women are told to avoid. I stood up and told the truth, no matter how messy or inconvenient it was for the people around me. Evan and I started therapy together. We didn't jump back into old routines or pretend nothing had changed. We talked about trust, loyalty, and how easy it is to lose each other when fear leads the way. Some days were hard. Some nights, we sat in silence, not sure what to say. But we kept showing up, and that, more than any apology, gave me hope. When Micah was 2 months old, Evan looked at me across the room and said, "Thank you for not letting them break you." I held our son and answered, "I didn't do it for them. I did it for me, for him, for us." I learned that love is not passive. It's not just choosing each other on the good days. It's choosing each other when your family turns on you, when your name is doubted, when the room is full of people waiting to see if you'll crack under pressure. Love shows up when it's hard. And if it doesn't, then it's not love, it's convenience. I didn't set out to destroy anything that day. I only wanted to protect what I was building. But sometimes, protection looks like confrontation. Sometimes it means exposing the cracks so the foundation can finally be rebuilt. To any woman who's been doubted, dismissed, or dragged through someone else's insecurities, let this be your reminder. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't need their approval to tell the truth. And when they try to turn your strength into a threat, show them just how dangerous honesty can be. Micah won't remember that baby shower, but one day, when he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him the story. And I'll say, "The day they tried to question your place in this world, I made sure they never did again." If this story made you feel something, anger, strength, even clarity, I hope you carry that feeling with you. Too many women are told to stay quiet, to protect the family image, to not make waves. But the truth matters, and protecting your peace matters even more. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself in a room full of people who doubted you, drop a speech bubble in the comments and tell your story, or just say, "I'm here." Because you're not alone. Like this story if it hit home. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that their voice is powerful. Subscribe for more real, unfiltered stories that don't shy away from the truth. Thanks for reading. Until next time, protect your peace, trust your gut, and never let anyone test your truth.